Aloha, I'm Diane Wilson with the Hawaii Writers Guild. Welcome to Write On, a series of episodes with education and inspiration for all of you writers out there. Today's episode features Sheri Brenden, who's in the process of having her first book published. Sheri and I were just together at the Tucson Festival of Books. Sheri, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, aloha, Diane. Thanks for having me. I have really always considered myself a writer, and I've kind of walked a career that has let me develop that skill. I was an English major in college and then went on to be a newspaper reporter and then a writing consultant. And then I worked in writing as an editor and writer for an agricultural cooperative for many years. And then I kind of took a step back and decided to go to library school and got my degree in library science. And at that point, I started working for very large law firms, doing research for attorneys, finding resources, answering all sorts of questions. And I got deep into research, but really didn't get to write, and I missed writing a lot. And so I started thinking more about how I could use my writing again. And even as I was working, I decided to find a story that I thought I could tell. And I identified this family story that's been important. And it turns out not just in our family, but legally and historically, it has national significance. And so that led me to go from being just a writer to now becoming an author.
So tell us about your book you're working on.
Well, the book is very exciting to me. It's still so new to me that I have to practice saying I have a title and everything. It's called Breakpoint: Two Athletes and the Road to Title IX. And it's about two high school girls who wanted to join their school sports teams. One plays tennis, the other is a runner and skier. The one who plays tennis happens to be my older sister. And this is all set in 1972, and their schools offered no interscholastic sports teams for girls. And they refused to allow them to play with the boys because there was a rule that prevented that, that was established for all the schools in the state. So they launched a federal lawsuit, and their case became a precedent-setting piece of law that was eventually appealed, and then it turned out it would be the first case ever to interpret an important part of what we now know as Title IX and how it relates to athletics in particular. So it's a story that kind of involves both courtroom drama and athletic events and high school kids and attorney strategies. And it has kind of a interesting kind of back and forth play as we see the case progress, but also how it works and how it feels for the two girls.
Great. Okay. So you're in the process of having the book published right now. And many of our viewers are very interested in getting their pieces published. And some go through agents, some go through self-publication, others query publishers. What route did you take?
Oh, a circuitous one, it seems like. It's been slow. I tried to find an agent, tried to pinpoint just the right person who would want the type of book that I was writing. That was part history, part sports, part personal narrative. And I went after that person, went to a writers' conference, had developed a query, did research on how to draft my proposal. I put my query before I made my pitch to the agent, and then he said he was interested in seeing more. And then boom, I shouldn't say boom, it was a very long wait until it went boom, but he wasn't interested. And so that led me to think, well, I know I'm not supposed to get it on the first try, but what else do I do? And so I decided to go directly to a publisher. And I was certain that this was a publisher that my book was made for. It was Historical Press in Minnesota, where I live and where the story takes place. but I was told no. But they gave me one piece of advice, which was I should try and write a shorter article that encapsulated a portion of my story. And I did that. I published it in the Minnesota History magazine at the time. And it was really valuable, both for me as a writer, because I had the satisfaction of actually having published something, and also really figuring out what was important in the story and what I wanted to highlight and how I would put that together. But also because it led me to make a connection with another writer who was getting a book published by the Minnesota or University of Minnesota Press. And he gave me a contact with the University of Minnesota Press, gave that editor there my name, and that got me into the loop, which was invaluable because this editor understood and was the kind of editor who wanted to work on my book. And he gave me some great insight and useful information. And so I plunged on, never really being sure that I had a book deal, but just feeling like I had enough interest to make it worth pursuing. And eventually I now have a book contract.
Excellent. Excellent. So tell us a little bit about your experience working with a publisher. What have been the pros and cons?
Oh, so the part of working with the publisher is that it just feels like it takes a lot of patience. I had no idea how slow the process is. And there's just a lot of things going on that I don't really understand what's happening in the background. So it seems like I'm waiting a lot, and I don't always know why. But I do feel like there are some really big upsides now. And I think it's partly now having got to the point where I actually have them giving me an emphatic date and a push point to get the book out. I did go through peer reviews, which was not something that I anticipated, but with a university press, that's a pretty standard thing. Which you could say pro and con. For the kind of book that I was writing, I wouldn't necessarily have assumed I needed that, but it really did give me some valuable feedback and really built my confidence. And they had a little bit more of an academic approach sometimes, but they also really had a good ear for the overall subject matter, and that was really valuable to me. I also now have other people working on my behalf, and so often we are focused on this basic task of writing, but there's just so much to getting a book out. So I had someone who actually wrote the blurb for me to put in the catalog that the University of Minnesota Press will put out with my book. And, not to say I can't write that blurb, but I was really happy to have someone who's done that before and knows how they look and what it should sound like. And that happened for me. I had an editor who tracked down photos and the permissions for those so that I could have that with the book. I'm working with a copy editor who's looking through my manuscript for consistency and style edits that is in detail that I have not had any editor provide before. So I guess you can say that's sometimes feels like a pro and a con. Some things you're like, just leave that. But, anyway, I have that sort of assistance that a lot of times in the process I could only wish for, but didn't know how I would gain.
So I'm curious, have you been able to give input to things like the book title, the book cover, or is that something the publisher has taken and run with?
Yeah, no, so the publisher actually gave me a pretty extensive questionnaire to fill out when I was signing the contract for the book, and asking me things about who might do endorsements, or what organizations might be interested in this book, or what sorts of places or events I think I should go to market the book. And they in particular asked some things about covers and allowed me to share my ideas. And then later on in the process, they came back and said, some things they were thinking about doing and what sorts of ran by some photos that they thought they might use. We talked a little bit about how that would work. Same with title. Title's been kind of I don't think I felt very strongly about title. I felt like I didn't have any particular expertise, so I was kind of happy to let them take the lead on that. So yeah, it seems like I've had some input. I haven't felt like it is happening without me knowing, and I haven't seen the book cover yet, so I'm eager to. I'm hoping it's going to be in the next couple of weeks.
Well, speaking of next couple of weeks, I'm curious to know, when do you expect to have the book finished and in hard copy, and where can people purchase it?
Well, it's actually coming out in paperback.
Oh,
and it's going to be out in December of this year, December 2022. I've been told that there are supply chain issues that have caused them to build in a couple 2 to 3 months of lag time or whatever in there. So I'm hoping that December 2022 still comes out okay. They said that we should be able to do pre-orders via the University of Minnesota Press website, because they will have it in the fall catalog, and that's coming out in May. So then this summer it would be available to make a pre-order.
Okay, excellent. Any last words of advice you'd like to share with the writers out there who are hoping to get published?
Well, I think it's really important to have your ties with other authors, other writers. Partly you just need a place to vent. Partly it's really so nice to have a chance to bounce ideas off of. And so I think the Writers Guild is a great way to do that, but you just need to be able to talk about your work and talk about your process. And then the thing that I've been struck by is how this is really just a marathon. You don't win by going faster. You need to just figure out how to finish. So.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you spending the time and telling us about your journey with your book, and congratulations to you. For people who want more information, I'm going to share Sheri's email address or website information at the end of this. And if people want more information about the Hawaii Writers Guild, you can go to www.hawaiiwritersguild.com and write on.